Good evening, YouTube. Welcome to Nerds of the North. New channel name, entirely due to having a new show to go with this new channel. I will be featured on 102.7 Chop FM, a local radio station around here, between 8 and 9 p.m. on Wednesday nights, Eastern Standard Time. I will give a link to the internet version of the radio program, so you'll be able to find me unless you're in an area where you can't pick up the station directly. But our radio broadcast is me and my fellow nerd Billy. We're going to be discussing what's coming out this week into theaters, what's currently being released for Blu-ray, what should you buy, what should you avoid. We're also going to be talking video games, what's currently coming out, what the industry hype is about. Of course, we'll be covering the new consoles when they release. And we're going to have a what are we playing section. So what games have been absorbing our time, our free time, our hard-earned dollars that are going into the games. We also have a special whenever we get the opportunity to feature them. We will be featuring local indie bands from around this area, and because a lot of them are really quite good and they deserve a little bit of airtime. Just get their names out there, get people listening to them. So we'll be featuring them. On weeks where we don't have a local indie band to feature, we'll be featuring music from our own personal collections, some of which good, a lot of which not, but everything will be suited perfectly fine for the radio. So I'll give you that link at the end of this episode. What is this episode here about? Well, this episode, we're going to be talking about the 2000 edition release and the 2005 sequel to Dungeons & Dragons. Now, this cover depicts the front cover of Dungeons & Dragons 2, Wrath of the Dragon God. It's technically not called Dungeons & Dragons 2, but it is the sequel. Direct sequel, because it carries over character names and storyline. So, where do we begin? Let's begin with the first movie that brought out in 2000 by New Line Cinemas, Dungeons & Dragons. This movie was directed and produced by Courtney Solomon. Courtney Solomon had a huge love for Dungeons & Dragons. He worked for 10 years to get this project into works and out onto the screen for everyone to see. And you know what? Thank you. Thank you, Courtney. You did a great job. I do enjoy this movie quite a lot. I was working at the movie theater at the time when this came out, and I was going kind of fanboy over it because I really wanted to see this movie. Of course, my manager ended up picking the movie up, and it did okay for our area. But it's because it bore the title Dungeons & Dragons. There's still a lot of stigma about Dungeons & Dragons being an evil game. So maybe that's what kept people away. I don't know. Who do we have playing in this movie? Well, we've got Justin Whalen. He's playing the main character, Ridley. He's teamed up with Marlon Wayans, who is playing his best friend, Snails. Along the journey, we also have our main villain, who is Jeremy Irons, and he's playing the evil sorcerer Profion, with Profion's bodyguard, played by Bruce Payne, a character by the name of Damodar, who, aside from having pale blue lips, which is kind of strange, always talks very slowly, very distinctly pronounced, and quite intimidating. But, you know what? If you speak a little bit faster, maybe your character wouldn't have been so annoying, and maybe you would have gotten things done a little bit faster in the storyline. So, we also get we have an interesting cameo in this movie by Richard O'Brien. If that name rings a bell to those of you out there, congratulations, you've seen Rocky Horror Picture Show. He plays head of the Thieves Guild, and it's really quite strange looking at it and going, holy crap, that's Riff Raff. Huh. Strange. Now, casting as a whole, good job on the cast. Fantastic job with Jeremy Irons. Give this man an award for overacting. He completely sells Profion as a psychotic wizard, intent on controlling the power of the Council of Wizards and intent on taking the power away from the Empress. Good job. Really fun to watch. The energy he gives on screen is amazing. We have Bruce Payne's character. Does a good job. Actually does a really good job in the movie. Justin Whalen. Likeable enough as a hero. Decent. Aside from choreography, we can't do much about choreography. That's someone else's point. He does a good job. I did enjoy him. His interplay with some of the other main characters is pretty well done. Marlon Wayans, I don't know if it was his choice to do it or the director's choice to do it, but it looks like he was told to play Chris Tucker's character from The Fifth Element. He has that whole that Rudy Rod would do a lot, and when you're watching Dungeons & Dragons, the last thing you expect to hear is that. Because if you're the kind of person who would be watching Dungeons & Dragons, you've probably seen Fifth Element, because it's another one of those cult movies, and that noise immediately pulls you out to Fifth Element, or at least it does to me. I immediately start seeing Rudy Rod with that weird cone-shaped hairdo and that annoying scream. But what can you do? I understand that Marlon Wayans was working on two movie projects at the same time, so time was not exactly a luxury, but you know what? He did a good job. I can't really complain about the guy. A lot of other fans do, but for the movie, he does good. Now, there is a cameo by Colin Baker as well, one of the Doctors, and Doctor Who will hopefully be a subject I will cover later, but I will cross that bridge when we get to it. As for special features, we do get alternative scenes, primarily a new ending. We get two commentaries, one with the director and Justin Whalen, and one of the director and the cinematographer and one of the game creators. There is a documentary for the making of the film as well. A making of featurette, special effects deconstruction, and you get the trailer. All in all, good amount of work brought to the forefront on that first disc. If we want to follow my rating system, I have to give Dungeons & Dragons, well, just that one movie, I'd probably give it a good 7 hockey pucks. I like it. I like it. Probably more of a 6.5, but I don't want to do halves as much as possible, so keep it with a 7. Could have been a lot better, but it definitely could have been a lot worse. And speaking of a lot worse, let's go on to the feature of the cover, Wrath of the Dragon God. Now, Wrath of the Dragon God came out in 2005. It was a made-for-TV quality sequel. Whereas you can look at Dungeons & Dragons of having a medium-sized budget, good old Dungeons & Dragons Wrath of the Dragon God is totally a low budget. This movie cost only $12 million to make. Pardon me. And I don't know exactly how much it brought back in, but for $12 million, I can tell you, I like what they did. With their money, they were able to put together a film that, in my honest opinion, captured the feeling of a campaign, multiple adventures in a campaign perfectly. I felt like I was watching a televised version of what's happening inside the players' heads when they're sitting around their gaming table. As a Dungeons & Dragons fan, and I will go as far as saying a Dungeons & Dragons fanboy, as you can clearly see from all my books here, they did really well. Really, really well. I thoroughly like the style of the movie. The movie does have with it being low budget, they call the town Izmir, but it doesn't look at all like Izmir from the first one, so that's a little off-putting. But I enjoy it. I do enjoy it. One of the main reasons why I enjoy it is all the nods to the fanboys that they put out there. This movie mentions a couple of noted D&D modules, like the Ghost Tower of Inverness, the Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. And these are what the characters actually talk about in the story. So you feel like, these characters have been a part of the Dungeons & Dragons world, the Dungeons & Dragons mythos. They've taken part in all these adventures or have heard of tales of these adventures. Very, very nicely portrayed. The somatic components of spellcasting are well shown. The order, the classing system between mages, and that was kind of new to see, but I liked it. It didn't draw anything away from the movie. In fact, it fortified something into the movie for me. One of the best things that I personally love about this movie, though, is the commentary track. This commentary track, whoever thought up this idea, you get a full honors for this, my friend. The commentary track, rather than having, I'm the director, I'm the producer talking about this movie, they took three people from the Dungeons & Dragons development universe and got them to sit down and play the characters personality-wise, become the characters that they've played in all the old Dungeons & Dragons stuff. For example, we have the commentary being done by the halfling Lidda, the half-orc Krusk, and the human Jozan, who are rogue, barbarian, and cleric, respectively. The way they play off each other, it's not people talking about these characters more than these characters are giving the commentary. You're watching it and Krusk will bring up something like, "Hey, Lidda, we're adventurers. Why didn't they get us to do this job? We do it better than them. These guys don't even know how to fight. No one has an axe. You have to use an axe." Where you get the cleric bantering back of, "Not every problem, Krusk, can be solved with an axe." "Oh, 2 axes?" I laugh so hard during this commentary. Something quickly as simple as, "Oh, hey, look, Lidda, there's a helmet over there. It's not nailed down. You should steal it." That is so disgraceful that you have to berate me so. "Well, what? You're a thief. It's what you do." It keeps a smile on my face throughout the movie. They pick the movie apart. They pick fun at the characters. When you have one of the characters who, as with any traditional Dungeons & Dragons adventure, characters can die, and one of the characters in this story does die, they don't hold back punches from it, and it's quite nice to see. I love the commentary track for this. If the movie doesn't catch your interest, try watching it with the commentary track on, and I think you'll find that this movie is far more than what it originally seemed. For storyline-wise, what we have is Damodar has come back. Profion had cursed Damodar to return as an undead being, and driven with all the pain of being an undead and the he did not fail his master, so why is he being tortured like this? Damodar sets out to find a legendary artifact called the Orb of Falazur. The Orb of Falazur is a orb that is supposed to control, or in this case, only houses the power as a restraining device of a black dragon god. A god of, I believe it's death or undeath. And Damodar seeks to release this god as punishment upon the people of Izmir for having for him being suffering like this for so long. So the party is set out to go and stop him, and this is a really well thought out party. You have a fighter, you have a barbarian, you have a rogue, you have a cleric, you have a wizard. Very well put together. I do enjoy that aspect of it. You have a couple of other side characters that are like, you have the character of Melora, who is the fighter's wife, and she is a low-ranking wizard who's dabbling in becoming a cleric as well, trying to blend arcane and divine magic. Interesting concept, and what's interesting about that concept is it's a character class from the book, and I like seeing that. I like seeing this come to life. The demon of Jublex is mentioned. They actually have to go and deal with something that Jublex has done. And it's, overall, story's pretty decent, you know. Stop the dragon god when the dragon god's resurrected. That's pretty much it. How do you stop a dragon god? Watch the movie and find out. I'm not going to give it away. So for special features, I already mentioned the commentary track. That's absolutely amazing. One of the people doing the commentary is actually Dungeons & Dragons Special Products Manager at Stark. We also have a featurette and an interview with Gary Gygax. Unfortunately, with it being 2005 release, it's probably one of the last things Gary Gygax has been recorded doing. But what I did like about this is throughout that interview you see glimpses of the character sheets, the actual Dungeons & Dragons character sheets that were handed to these actors going, this is your character. Here's the books. This is who you are. This is what you're being. And there's so many noted items in here. You have a Vorpal sword, you have the Ring of the Ram, Rod of Lightning, you have Magmen, you have Lizardmen, a white dragon actually shows up. Black dragon, of course. The spells, like the specifics of needing hand gestures to perform a spell, different verbal components to do a spell. The fact that the wizard says, well, I've only got 2 of these spells prepared, so we got to be careful with how we use them. That all really coalesced very well, the idea and the feeling behind what it's actually like in your imaginations when you're at a game table. So, final ratings for this. If it was just the movie, if I watched the movie on its own, I gotta give it only 5 hockey pucks. Only 5. Or stars or whatever. I still haven't decided what I'm doing. Probably going to stick with hockey pucks. So 5 hockey pucks out of 10. But put the commentary on. And with the amount that you're smiling and laughing at the end of this, this easily scores a 7 hockey pucks and is an equal match to Dungeons & Dragons. Where Dungeons & Dragons, the first one, was more visually appealing to get its point across. It's the genius of the special effects that makes Dungeons & Dragons Wrath of the Dragon God so memorable in my eyes. Thank you for listening. I'm Matt, one of your Nerds of the North. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.